After what felt like forever, the Gurus are back here for episode 2. Xaiver Aguiar, Mike Testa. The episode 1, the pilot, had such good reception. We're like, hey, we'll keep doing this. Why not? Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, as well as I can be. Both of our teams are 0-1. We'll get into that. But as well as I can be doing of what was a lackluster weekend for our football teams.
Yeah, despite my take in the pick'em that we do, which I did fantastic in this week.
We both went 13-3.
Yeah,
I saw that. Yeah,
I should have went 14-2. I'm not going to pick against the team that I root for.
Same here.
In the first week, but I kind of knew where it was going. I was actually picking your team. I was with the Sharps on that one, but I digress. There's a lot to pack into from week 1. It is Thursday, so the way we'll do this is a little bit unique. We're going to go through the under-the-radar storylines every week. We're going to start with the quarterbacks this time around. We'll develop this. We'll see how it goes in the future. But this time, I think it's important. A lot of the talk in the offseason is about two things, fantasy football and quarterback. So I think it's important to kind of digest what we saw from week 1, especially with signal callers, and see, where we're at with some stuff. So, Mike, I know you want to get into something in particular. It's a little bit close to home, so why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, Dolphins-Colts, very close to home, obviously. I don't think any of us anticipated the game going the way they did. Actually, the line closed at Colts -1. So the Dolphins were underdogs. So maybe we should have seen this coming.
Right.
But a 33-8 shellacking. And we'll start with the quarterbacks. I mean, if you just asked me, 4 days ago, Tua against Daniel Jones, I would be like, I'm feeling pretty good about that game, And one guy scored on all 7 of their drives, and the other guy looked worse than even the stats indicated. And I'm a Tua guy. I mentioned this on the first episode. I think he masks a lot of what the Dolphins' issues are. I've never seen him play so poorly in a football game. From start to finish, usually he always has some flashes. It's like, okay, there's the anticipatory throws over the middle of the field. There's the stuff where it's like there's the RPO stuff that we love. There was none of that on Sunday. It was really embarrassing. It's also embarrassing that the Dolphins only had 4 healthy snaps of their offensive line before James Daniels inevitably goes down with a lower leg injury, and then Tua's throwing picks the very next play, sailing guys over the middle of the field. That's not even his thing. Usually the things that Tua's good at is that middle of the field. You move guys around, you move backers with your eyes, and you throw to the open window against that zone look. And he couldn't do that on Sunday. Obviously, we know he's not an off scripture kind of guy. Briefly showed that in 22, and then he got a few concussions. But it just was nothing. Nothing went well for Miami that day, and it's hard for me to point the finger at. Well, I mean, I literally did point the finger at everything because everyone played terribly. But I was most shocked. I think you asked me, I was like, well, what if it's not like a shootout loss? Like, what if you lose like 19-16? And I was like, then I'd be very concerned that we couldn't score against the Colts, who were the 29th ranked defense last year. And we really should have got blanked. I mean, those 8 points.
It was somemew worse than what I pitched.
It was worse than what you're like, okay, what if it's just like a low scoring, like, what's like a rock fight? And I was like, it wasn't even a rock fight. It was just a disaster on all accounts. We scored 8 points on a little 4th and goal swing pass with like 3 minutes to go. We should have got blanked. That's all garbage time. I'm not I'm not a big garbage time guy. That's why I was never a big Kirk Cousins fan or Geno Smith fan or anyone who puts up these 300-yard games when they're gonna lose the game and the game's kind of out of reach with a quarter to go. This game was out of reach with 2 quarters to go. We could have honestly put Zach Wilson and the guys in at halftime. It was so pathetic. So all those numbers late, I don't care about. And that's why I honestly think Tua looked worse than the stats indicate. He was 14-23, had a touchdown pass, 2 picks, fumble. Definitely a bad performance, but I almost thought it was worse than what the stats indicated, which is really concerning.
Yeah, and the reason why I was so heavily into Miami in this game, I thought Vegas was underselling the fact that Tua comes out of the season usually guns ablaze.
Yep.
And I think what I've noticed from him early is, like you mentioned, early in the season, Miami, the last few seasons, in my opinion, they come out, they run this kind of quick passing attack. They like to utilize crossers over the middle of the field. He likes to shred it, step into his throws. It's so quick and timing-based. And I think against the bad teams and mediocre teams, they kind of shred them.
Yeah.
And against the better teams, they seem to be able to knock Tua's timing off to a point where the offense kind of crumbles. And
that's why there's no plan B.
Yeah. And I think that's why the last few years it's been pretty evident that Miami's had a ceiling as a team because this kind of gimmicky offense that they run seems to struggle against kind of the heavyweights of the team. And heading in, I was like, okay, I understand why people are test driving the Indy thing. Like, if Daniel Jones is just adequate. Last year, I thought they were a decent team, and I think a lot of times quarterback play hindered them, particularly Richardson more so than Flacco. But even with Flacco, the running game kind of took 2 steps backwards, so that hurt. But they were still that 7-8 win team. So if Jones was able to come in and just kind of meet in the middle of both those philosophies, perhaps they could sneak out a few more wins. And I'm not ready to say they're there yet as far as Indianapolis, but as far as Tua goes, you can't start out the season like this when you know you are a injury risk. You know that against better teams, you tend to falter in dramatic fashion. And you have Indy, granted, on the road, granted they were an underdog, as you mentioned, but still.
But not one of the better teams. This is one of the teams that you should beat.
It was such a pitiful performance from start to finish. It wasn't just that it was this lackluster Tua kind of under-exceeded the expectations. It was so bad that at halftime, people were questioning if Miami had to blow up the whole team, which was kind of, there was rumblings about that before the season.
In the offseason, right.
So for that to come to fruition within one half of football, where people are already giving up on this guy, who I think the jury was out. We talked about it in the opener last week. We talked about where is the temperature check on Tua, and you mentioned health aside, because the health thing is obvious at this point. He can't stay healthy. It's a known risk. It's very Joel Embiid reminiscent, but without the accolades and being a top 10 player. Right. So it's almost worse. But you mentioned from as far as like a production standpoint was concerned, you were a little concerned, but you still had some faith that at least the first few months of the season when he is kind of, he has his head on straight, no pun intended, and he's fine in the pocket, that there was something there, that he could lead this team to at least mediocrity, at least the fringe of the AFC wildcard picture. And it seems like so far, again, it's 1 week, it's a small sample.
1 week made it, right.
But it was such a disastrous sample that I think now the focus goes to Miami. Where do you go from here? Because if this trend continues, the next game for them is against New England.
Yes.
In a game that I think many people in New England thought Miami would win before last week. I think the goal in New England was you beat the Raiders at home, you lose to Miami on the road. Now that focus kind of shifted. Okay, you lose the game against Vegas, but now you have Miami coming off this absolutely abysmal performance. Can you perhaps steal that? And if that is the case, and if Miami starts 0-2,
it's over.
Then it's the season's over. Because you're going to have the 2 losses, you presume, against Buffalo. That's 0-4. Who's to say the Jets won't split at this point? So that's 1-5. And then basically
you got Baltimore, you got Pittsburgh on the schedule. These are
right. Yeah. You're going to have to somehow win like 8 games in a row at some point, or 7 of 8. It's just not feasible. So I think with Tua, where are you at with replacing him at the end of the season? Because an in-season replacement to me is kind of null and void. It's Zach Wilson. If you want to test the tires on him, I guess. I wouldn't do it, but I would understand it, I guess, if tanking is the goal, Zach Wilson's your guy. But
sure.
Beyond this season, next year's quarterback class, like, who knows with Arch Manning at this point? Drew Aller could be interesting, but again, I don't know where I'm at with him at this point. Right. So what do you think the replacement level is on Tua right now?
Right now, see, I don't want to make a week 1 overreaction thing, because I do have 5 years of evidence that I would take over 1 game of evidence of Tua, lifting this team to at least mediocrity when this team should probably not be mediocre. So I'm not going to say let's look to change it. Let's look to fix, get a different quarterback. However, if McDaniel's gone and Greer is gone, we've talked about this with other guys, the new people they bring in have no allegiance to Tua. So at that point, it's their call. So this is probably more of a Tua-McDaniel marriage thing. If you want McDaniel gone, then vice versa, you may also just want Tua gone, because it's like, why not just restart and get it? At this point, this offense is catered to Tua. So if McDaniel ain't there, it's going to be a different offense. So how will Tua look? So those are the questions that would come up. But certainly nothing this year. I mean, I joked around to a few people that are Longhorn fans. They're like, we want to see Quinn Ewers. I'm like, you may get him but not because Tua's going to get benched. Tua ain't going to get. You're not going to bench a $200 million quarterback. It would probably be because Tua does not survive the season behind this offensive line again, and you probably see him that way. Because my guess, if this stays the way it goes, my educated guess, because Tua does miss time every year except for 23, he'll go down at some point. Zach Wilson will come in, probably not look very good, and when the Dolphins are eliminated, if or when, they'll probably go to the 7th round pick, Quinn Ewers. So I think we'll see him, but I don't think it'll be because, Tua's so bad to the point where they get back. I don't foresee him being this bad for 17 weeks. That I physically cannot comprehend because I've never seen him look this bad until Sunday. He's had bad games, but yesterday was another different. It was a new low, and the whole team had a new low. I mean, usually the NFL is so close, winning or losing. That game was over 5 minutes in. So I don't think he'll be that bad. I don't think the team is that bad. Although they did kind of show me everything that I was concerned about with the team, as far as the secondary is concerned, as far as the offensive line is concerned, and as far as like Tyreek Hill doesn't want to be here. Lining up in the wrong spots. I mean, stuff that we had 6 months to prepare for, and it looked like the team didn't even get off the plane. So very concerning. But I'm not going to take away 5 years of me watching Tua play, the first 2 years with Flores and the first 3 years with McDaniel, and be like, oh, well, he's done after one game against the Colts. Like, I'm not going to go that route. Although if McDaniel gets fired, I'll have to talk about that because there's probably going to be a change everywhere from the top down.
So, Mike, you're in the weeds. You obviously run a Dolphins fan page, Dolphins Country, and a podcast with the same title. What are the fans thinking? Because, like I said, you're in there every day. You're seeing the comments. There seems to be a lot of optimism that I noticed before the season on your page. Where is it at this point?
There's some people that still are hanging on to optimism that it is just one game. And had Buffalo lost that game to had Buffalo lost that game to Baltimore, which it looked like they were going to do, I had people saying, hey, glass half full, the whole division's 0-1. And if we do next week, we'll be first place or whatever. So there are still those people out there that view this as just one game. I'm not those kind of people because I look at the schedule in its totality and I say, okay, if you're an optimistic fan, you expect to beat the Colts. That's number one. And if you can't do that, what does it tell? Like, we know you're not going to beat Buffalo. You're probably not going to beat Baltimore. You got Pittsburgh in December on the road and cold night game, Monday Night Football. Like, there's games on here that I just know from watching this team that we're not going to win. So if you lose to the Colts week 1, even the optimistic fans will start to turn. And I think half the fan base, if I had to guess, is turned. They're like, okay, we're going to start flying. We're going to go to the game on Sunday. And what is a sneaky must-win for September games are concerned at home against New England. And they're going to come in there, and if it gets bad, there's going to be some boo birds. The fans will turn. I think they want Greer gone. I think they want McDaniel gone. And if Tua puts up another stinker, they're going to want him gone too. It's going to be like, you know what? Get rid of all 3 of them. That's what the talk will be if they lose on Sunday, or if they just put up a poor performance. If it's like 14-10, there's going to be booing. You can't. I mean, It's that simple. Like, we need results now. This is year 4 of McDaniel and Tua, and if they come out here and once again look absolutely like anemic on offense, in a month where usually they're good offensively, they're a warm weather team. You got to get off to good starts in September. If they get off to this poor of a start, it's the talk in the fan base. Even the optimist will turn.
It feels like it's on the precipice of collapse at this point.
It is.
Yeah. And so, shifting from your team to the team I root for, if you couldn't tell from my hat, the New England Patriots put up a disappointing performance out of the gate against the Las Vegas Raiders, and a large part of that was Drake Maye. And there was a lot of optimism, again, coming into year 2 for Drake Maye. Last year felt like kind of a test run. No one took it super seriously, and I think a lot of his missteps year 1 were explainable. The offensive line was one of the worst I've seen in recent professional football memory. Yeah. And the weapons weren't anything to write home about. And when you combine those two things with a totally inept head coach, you get year 1 Drake Maye, which was kind of fun, but at the end of the day, not that effective. And I think in year 2, when you insert Josh McDaniels, who's been around the block and is a tenured offensive coordinator, and you insert Mike Vrabel, who is one of the more well-respected head coaches in the league, despite his axing from Tennessee, and you marry those two guys together and you put in Drake Maye into the equation, you expect results, and you expect them immediately, despite the weapons not being that much better. You have an extra year of Kayshon Boutte, who I was excited for last week, and so far so good, and then Stephon Diggs, and you add Travion Henderson into the backfield, and that was kind of it. And most of the optimism around this team was about the ascension of Drake Maye, taking that step forward with kind of the better personnel around him, both on the team and in the coaching staff. And out of the gate, it was so disappointing that he is on our list because for me, I understand that he is young, and I understand that coming out of UNC, this was kind of the problem with Drake Maye, that he wasn't always the most accurate guy. He was kind of this gunslinger, this, cowboy-esque quarterback as far as the Brett Favres of the world, the Josh Allens of the world, this kind of rodeo guy that kind of shoots out of the hip and tries to spray it all over the place, and sometimes that looks fantastic and other times it looks disappointing. The problem with Drake Maye so far is I think he's less of that guy than people anticipated. I don't think he's necessarily in that mold. Do I see the Josh Allen physical traits? Sure, I understand that. I think he has a rather large arm. It's not the size of Josh's, but I understand. He can do the stuff off platform that makes you go, wow. And he's a good runner of the football, and he's got a big build. He isn't necessarily put on that muscle that Allen did, especially like year 3 and 4. But he still has that large build and the speed that you kind of look at him, and he's this prototypical 2025 NFL quarterback. And what was so disheartening for me is you saw glimpses of that again. You saw glimpses of there were some good throws to Booty. He had a great one over the middle to Diggs that was an important play in the game. But the more I watched him, it became utterly concerning that he has a tendency when there is pressure. It doesn't even have to be a lot of pressure. If the pocket just gets even a smidge muddled, he tries to throw off platform, and his accuracy takes a step back because of it. He had at least 5 or 6 errant balls. The interception not even including because he was hit by Max Crosby, but regardless, the fact that it went high, this kind of trend that keeps happening that a lot of the local beat reporters talked about in the summer, but it really came to a head again in week 1. And for me, as a Patriots fan, it's not necessarily Mac Jones territory yet because Maye has the physical skills. You can see it. It's
that
apparent.
Did not have, right, yeah.
That he did not have. And I think even though it's not maybe this cerebral competitiveness, he has this level of desire to be great that is apparent when watching him play. He gets upset when he makes mistakes. That's something you want in a quarterback. Whereas Mac Jones is much more whiny, and it was just truly disheartening to watch. He acted like a toddler half the time. Yeah. But you just want to see some progression at this point. You want to see one good game where it's like, okay, he led them to victory. Mike, he only has one professional win under his belt.
Yeah.
So I think against...
Who was that against?
You want to know what sound? I don't even remember. I remember he was torching Miami in the first half before he got hurt. It'll come to me. It will.
It wasn't the one that Joe Milton won late last year. It wasn't that one. It was something.
Yeah, that was Buffalo.
Yeah,
I can't even remember. That's how sad it is. That's how sad it is. And I am about as, again, in the weeds with sports as you possibly can. And I do know it'll take me a second. We're live here. Yeah. But regardless, you just want, like, in a year that is promised as a rebuild, as this kind of step forward after the last few years with the Belichick debacle and then into Mayo, who no one thought was qualified for the job. It was succession-esque. But, man, was he the worst son of the bunch. But you go into...
Is this like Vrabel, a Kendall Roy thing with the actual...
Bet. Yeah, okay, you bet. And you go into Vrabel, and you just want the quarterback to look a little bit more polished. They didn't have to necessarily win the game. But when Geno Smith looks significantly better than the guy that you picked in the top 5, it's a little concerning.
It's a little, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Not to segue already, but I think you mentioned this or someone mentioned it. There's a little bit of we have the same exact conversation with Caleb Williams. I mean, it's a little bit with the errant throws, balls are high. Guy went in the top 5 of the 2024 draft class. So these are all the same kind of issues. And, I don't think he's on our list today, but it was the same thing we saw Monday night from Caleb. It was a little bit when the pocket gets a little muddy.
Mike, his only career win was against Caleb. It was a disgusting game.
That's right. Chicago. Okay. It was when the Bears were in their disgusting fall after the Commanders' Hail Mary, and they did win that game. You're absolutely right. I don't know why I thought it was like the Cardinals or someone was scared.
I was going through the Rolodex. I just looked at all the teams, and I was like, yep, Chicago.
And that's when Chicago couldn't – I think they scored 10 points. So it was one of those games where the Bears were in their they were.
And Mike, I
underdogs.
just want to insert something real quick because we don't have Caleb on our list, but I think the reason May has kind of gone under the radar this week as far as not catching a ton of flack outside of local Boston media is because Caleb not only had guys open, his team's significantly better, and his coach is a guy who everyone just clamored for months, that everyone was calling like this second coming of McVay, this incredible offensive guru, and he struggled under those circumstances. So I think that's why Caleb has gotten a lot of the flack, whereas May, I don't think necessarily as many people saw the game. It was buried in the 1 o'clock window. It wasn't Monday Night Football week 1. So I think this May thing, although the concerns are similar, he's kind of getting a pass because, okay, it's year 1 in a new regime, just like Caleb, but his team is worse and it's for some reason more accepted that the Patriots thing is going to take a little bit longer, whereas the Bears are expecting immediate results, especially after those first few drives. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that makes the Drake Maye thing more concerning by any means, but I think when we're talking about this, I think you saw more steps forward out of like great quarterbacks in their second year.
Yes.
And I think with May, it's like, when is that time going to come? And at what point do the concerns really start to amplify? Because I don't think we're there yet, but I think
may need to come this Sunday. It's this Sunday. He's got a great
okay.
I'm just going to say right now, these corners are terrible. I'm not sure the pass rush is as good as it really is in Miami. I think if there's going to be a week where you see some signs of good quarterback play, he won't do what Daniel Jones does. I hope not. But this is a good opportunity to kind of get your feet under you and have a nice bounce back performance in your second year. This Dolphins defense is terrible. Like, I genuinely believe that. Now they're at home, so they might play better, but and the pass rush may just be too much for a Patriots offensive line that, I mean, you probably know this more than I do. It's probably not fixed. I mean, this was a terrible O-line last year. It doesn't become a great O-line in one offseason. That just doesn't happen.
It was adequate. I think they did a good enough job, especially where they were last season. I think a big point of contention this week was Crosby lines up over the right tackle because he's a left end. And every run the Patriots had was to the left, so away from Crosby.
Of course.
And I think a lot of that was concerning because people were like, at some point, the Raiders had to have figured that out. Like, obviously, that's going to hinder your running attack. And I think Vrabel all offseason was talking about, like, pounding the rock, this smash mouth style that he brought to Nashville when he was with the Titans.
Yep.
And you didn't see that at all in week 1. I believe there's only like 11 like traditional run plays from the running backs on New England. Again, all to the left. So perhaps if they're able to mix in actually running the ball, getting some Trevion Henderson touches in space, which I think is incredibly important because we didn't see that a ton in week 1.
Right.
And you're right. I think this is a critical week. And look, regardless of how Miami ends up, this could be a 5-win Dolphin team. I don't know, right?
Very well could be.
But this is a road game in a place that New England has historically struggled as a franchise. And you know more than anyone, I hate that kind of rhetoric. But I think it's decently important when you're a young quarterback with a new regime. You just need to see something positive against these lesser than great teams, which Miami clearly is at this point,
100%.
Especially in the secondary, which, like, we were joking about it last week. If you went on the streets before this game next to Hard Rock and you were polling Dolphins fans, can you name members of your secondary? There would be such a struggle. I guarantee you there are people that consider themselves diehard Dolphins fans that would not be able to name a single person.
No, and the top corner, Storm Duck, I've got it. Like, is that a real person? Like, is that actually one of our corners? I was like, stop me when I said he's actually not just one of our corners. He's apparently one of our best corners. So that's a major problem.
He was decent in college, but I wouldn't want him as my number one corner. No,
I would not. And now he's out for at least a month. So I don't even know who the Dolphins corners are, and I cover the team, so I genuinely don't know. So maybe Drake Maye knows. He'll probably
I hope he knows.
Yeah, I mean, Rasul Douglas, talk about off the street. He literally just came off the street a week and a half ago to come to the team. I mean, it was like after the 53-man roster got finalized. They're like, hey, Rasul Douglas, you want to come off the streets and help us play corner? Help play corner for us. So it's really embarrassing. Should we segue into former number 1 overall picks? We got Cam Ward here. We got Bryce. Which one should we dive into?
Let's do Cam Ward because I feel like I was really paying attention close to this game, and I was texting everyone about it.
I didn't really.
Yeah, I was texting everyone about this when it was happening. And the Ward thing, I think some national people have talked about, but it really has gone under the radar because if you look at the traditional stats, it is nothing to write home about. It's under 150 passing yards. It was a poor completion percentage, and his team got thoroughly outplayed the entire time. But, and this is the important but, Denver's defense
is a monster.
in my opinion, by far the best in the league. I don't think it's remotely close. Okay, that's how good they are. It is so ridiculous watching them just swarm to the ball, just the exotic looks they were bringing, and we talked about it last week. They just added an All-Pro in Hufanga, who balled out in this game. They added Drake Greenlaw. Alex Singleton comes back from injury. Those are three guys that they added to this already amazing core, and two of them really showed out in this game. And then you have like Nick Bonito, who I think is one of the best players in the NFL at this point.
Yeah. Newly
Zach
paid.
Allen. Yes, Zach Allen, who's continuing to kind of come out of nowhere and be this like dominant edge guy, seemingly like people thought he was a bust, and now he's one of the best edge rushers in the league.
I'll throw my hand up.
Yeah. And Cam Ward looked comfortable against those guys. And look, it's one of those things, it's pure eye test. It's pure watching film of this game. But he was making confident reads. There was a few times where I thought he could have got the ball out a little bit faster and could have avoided pressure because this Broncos defense is so terrorizing around the edges, and there was constant pressure. And look, it's his first ever game. It was always going to happen. He was going to take some stupid sacks. He was going to make some stupid plays. But how confident he looked in key moments, especially late in the game.
Yeah.
There's this drive where they could go and I believe tie the game, and there was a few drops. Calvin Ridley had more than a few up the seam. Chigakonkwo had one he couldn't hold on to. I was just so impressed with him. And look, I didn't know what I was expecting it to look like going in. We both talked about how Tennessee's kind of one of those fringe sleeper teams. I was really in on them.
Yeah, they're not bad.
And my goodness, I'm tripling down. We'll do a stock segment later, but I am tripling down on this Tennessee thing because Cam Ward really looked the part. And that is by far the worst it should get this entire season. He obviously has to play Houston, who has a good defense. But again, I think Denver's defense is so much better than everyone else's that on his first career game, on the road, in Denver, against those guys, if he looks that decent this early on, my gosh, what is it going to look like by like week 8?
Well, yeah, Greg Cosell mentioned this on The Herd, which I was just watching about an hour and a half ago. He was like, the pressure is different from college and the NFL. And for it being his first NFL game, yeah, there's probably a few plays where he could have got the ball out a little bit quicker. Coming from college where he was sitting back there, he had all the time in the world last year.
That was part of like the problem with his evaluation was he loved to kind of just stand in there forever. And it was kind of susceptible to having the ball knocked out because, again, his turtle clock was kind of all over the place because he had 10 seconds to throw. Yeah. He would try to force it because after the 10 seconds, he'd kind of be like, okay, well, I got to make a play now. And he just kind of throw it up. So you saw that with the turnovers. But I think we both thought that's not exactly how he plays when he kind of is in a traditional offense when he only has the 4 or 5 seconds. And you saw that this week. I don't think he really put the ball in play that much as far as like for Denver to pounce on and take advantage of. He was so efficient. He was cerebral with his approach.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really impressive. And I think this is for a first game test. It's like taking like, the final exam on like the very first week, not to bring up Dabo had. But like literally he faced maybe one of the best defenses in the league. Certainly up front, the pass rush is unbelievable. Now he does have to face the Rams this week, another very nice front four. So they're kind of throwing him with two really good fronts the first couple weeks of his career. But I think overall, this is this is as tough as it'll get as far as you're in the AFC South, so you get the Jags twice, you get the Colts twice. Those defenses aren't anything to write home about. Not to I gotta give the Colts their flowers. They really dominated the Dolphins. But nonetheless, you get 4 games that you should be able to really settle in. And yeah, I thought he looked good anyways. I mean, you had a couple of drops by Ridley. Okonkwo couldn't hold on to one. I mean, Cam Ward's dad sitting there in the stadium. He's like, I can't believe what's going on here. I just got done watching my son throw for 50 touchdowns last year at Miami, and it's just like, man, it's a stark difference. You go into Denver and the elevation and against that defense, that's why it's always tough for rookies to win there. Not necessarily because they're not like ready for the moment per se, but it's just a huge difference from college when you're playing mostly SEC teams, or in his case, either he was in the ACC, and now you're coming to the league and you're right away week 1. Denver against that defense with those pass rushers and Nick Bonito and those guys. It's just a tough ask. And I thought he looked pretty good considering the ask. And I'm right there with you. I had Cam Ward stock anyways. I didn't have much Titan stock in me, but maybe I should start, maybe I need a Titans Island over there. Maybe I'll get the Chigo Conquo Island. I'll have some reservations there with Tennessee.
That was a notification telling Brian Callahan you can challenge a play when a guy's knee is in bounds.
Yes. I don't think he knew after the game. He said, does one elbow equal to, does a knee equal? Like, yeah. This is stuff you should know as a head coach in year 2.
I'm usually like, hey, like it's easy to forget things, but that's one of those things I'm like, hey, man.
It's pretty standard.
Come on. Like, it's not one of those minutia baseball rules that comes out every, 15 years that everyone's like, wait, that's a thing? And then the guy in the corner is like, yeah, you didn't know that? And everyone's like, come on. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like,
no, this is... Right. This is basic 101 football stuff. Like, yeah, they actually say it every single Sunday if you ever turned on any game with audio, Brian Callahan, which I hope you do at some point.
Yeah, no, that was a rough moment for Brian Callahan. But overall, I think Cam Ward passed the eye test, which is more important than the box score numbers. I mean, we're not big into box score numbers. But like I mentioned with Tua, I think Tua played worse than the box score suggests. Cam Ward, I think, passed the eye test, at least week 1 against Denver.
Yeah.
We only have one game to go off of.
And again, they weren't really able to establish Tony Pollard because, again, Denver's defense is just unbelievable all over the place. So we'll see if they're ever able to establish a decent rushing attack, like what that looks like. We didn't get to see a ton of play action from Ward last week, so we'll see how that goes. But we'll move on to the other number 1 pick with far less praise coming out of this week. It was Bryce Young, who I talked about last week in length, about this kind of like ridiculous notion that he was awesome at the end of the last year. I thought he was adequate, which was, again, a major step from where he was, but he still had such a far way to go. And when you're the number 1 overall pick in an organization that is desperate to take a step forward, despite what you might think of Tepper and upper management of this team, they clearly want to win. They invested in their offensive line. They've invested in everything that can go around Bryce Young, from weapons to coaching infrastructure. They clearly want him to succeed.
Yeah.
And what does he do? After kind of building on some stuff the last few weeks of the season, seemed like he had a decent summer. Week 1 rolls around against Jacksonville, who I think was in a similar place with less buzz entering the season. In my head, they were on a similar plane to the public, but I did have Jacksonville a step above. And not only did they look a step above, they looked 10 steps above because Jacksonville waxed them in this game. And again, it was a little bit wacky. There was a long weather delay. It was tough to follow because it kind of leaked in between the two windows, but I went back and watched it. Yeah. And look, I'm ready to do this. I'm done with Bryce Young. I'm over it. I'm so over it. And look, I don't know if I was ever in on Bryce Young as an NFL prospect. I liked watching him in college, but I always thought he was gimmicky. He was a small-statured guy. He had decent athleticism for the college game. I remember that Texas game. Literally, he escapes the pocket in miraculous fashion. They end up winning. It was kind of the game that helped put Sark on the map. They kind of ascended upwards afterwards, despite not.
Yeah, they were like 3 touchdown underdogs, and they almost beat.
Despite not winning that game, that was a big deal for that program. But regardless, he didn't have a massive arm, and if you pair all those 3 things together, he's not an incredible athlete. He doesn't have a massive arm, and he's short. I was like, what is this guy? Because if you look at the other smaller statured quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, he's a generational sideline-to-sideline athlete. Yeah. He is truly a specimen in that category. And sure, he's like 5'10", but he is a cannon for an arm. Okay? Sure. And even a guy like Dylan Gabriel, who went to my alma mater, and I was never really into as a pro prospect, he has this incredible pinpoint accuracy in the pocket. Where, sure, if you muddle the pocket, he's short and he struggles and he's not a great athlete, but he's still so electric as far as between the numbers, timing, etc. He can do that at an elite level. Bryce Young never really showed that he could do that at an elite level. So I'm like, what is this guy? What am I supposed to want from this guy? Because I think he's decently accurate, but he's not like that pinpoint marksman over the middle.
Sure.
Again, we haven't seen him be able to really handle pressure at all at the NFL level whatsoever. And then, especially the beginning of last year, and you saw it again on Sunday, there are times where he just misses people wide open in the flat, and is that because of his height?
He throws it away. Yeah, he throws it away.
Is that because of his height? I personally think so, but like you'd have to, I guess, talk to him about it. But I think that's a part of it. So kind of all these concerns that I had entering his pro career have really came to a head. And at this point, when is it going to get better? He's not going to grow. I hope I grow every day. I'm a short guy. I wish I could. You can't. At some point, it's over, man. It's over. He's not going to get more athletic. He can't get faster, okay? No, and guess what? Accuracy, you can get more accurate, I guess. I saw it with Josh Allen.
Yes, we saw it. Yeah.
I hope it happens with Drake Maye. There's other guys it happens to. Lamar definitely got more accurate. I don't think he gets credit enough for that. Watching Justin Herbert throughout his career, I think from his freshman year at Oregon to where he is now, he's definitely became a more accurate quarterback. So I guess that's the one thing you hold your hat on. But Mike, this feels like a pipe dream. And I feel like I'm yelling at people like, hey, what did you expect? What did you expect? And we're exactly where I thought we'd be. And somehow it's worse. I was super cynical about it, and somehow it's worse.
It's worse. And what I expected, at least for week one, was him to play well because it's the Jags. The Jaguars.
You would think.
Anemic. And I'm like the meme. I don't know if you saw the Simpson meme where he's like backing away into the bushes. Like he's like backing up. You know?
Yeah.
I'm like
legendary.
Yeah, my Bryce Young stock, I'm having to take a backseat right now. I don't want to have – I'm not fully out, but I'm kind of like vanishing behind the bushes until further notice. Maybe I'll come out again, when he faces the Saints or the Falcons. But, I mean, look, this is the Jaguars, I mean, again, late last year, he played pretty well against Atlanta. He played pretty well against Arizona.
Mike, the one game that I allowed people to have over me was that Chiefs game. Because Atlanta's defense blew, okay?
Terrible.
But that Chiefs game, I think, was something. And they played Philly, if I remember correctly, right? And he played decently against them as well.
It was like 19-17, yeah.
Right. So against the two Super Bowl teams, he did look okay.
He held his own. Yeah, he held his own.
But beyond that, it's been a total dumpster fire for the most part. So, like, if you're Carolina, are you looking at this quarterback class? We talked about it earlier with Miami. I think it's more apparent with Carolina because I think Canales is still a good coach. I mean, I guess the jury's still out, but I think from what I've seen, the concepts at least, like there's something there's something feasible. Yeah. I thought he was awesome in Tampa, and I think surely that there is like an extra level or two he can go as a play caller. But this Young thing, man, like what week are you giving him before you're like, okay, this might be done?
Well, here, I'll go quickly on the Canales thing because I've heard Panthers fans say this to me about, the run stuff with him isn't there. And Tampa Bay has said the same thing. It's like, we get rid of Canales and we bring in Liam Cohen, and the run game takes a huge step up for Tampa Bay. Now, you could say that that's Liam Cohen just being more innovative or whatever, or you could say it's Bucky Irving is now there, and Dave Canales does not have Bucky Irving. So you can argue whichever side you want. I don't know. But we got one game of evidence of two former Bucks OCs going at each other, and I know which one looked better. I think Dave Canales was brought in there though to fix Bryce Young. So I mean, would they look at this quarterback class, or are they going to say, "Hey, Dave Canales, we brought you here to fix Bryce Young. Please fix Bryce Young, or we are all getting fired"? Is that like?
But what if?
I don't know.
But what if it was just a bad evaluation? Like, will they just like? I feel like in the NFL.
But then why is Dave Canales there then? Like, what was he brought in to do?
Well, I'll get into that. I think you're right. I think he was brought in to fix Bryce Young. But at what point are you like, okay, this is a bad evaluation? Because I think in the NFL, it's team dependent. But I think there was more of a realization like, okay, we kind of had this guy taking a step forward, entering the league. Like if he just worked on X, Y, and Z, he'd be this, mythical guy that could ascend to, like, let's say they obviously thought he could be a top 10 quarterback. They took him first overall.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's so evident that at best, if he was a average quarterback, you'd be pumped. So, to me, why can't the brain trust in Carolina just say, hey, it was a bad evaluation. We missed. I know there's been some kind of like in and out of the organization since then. So there's some new guys in there at this point.
New guys, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like this was a bad evaluation. We're going to move on. And Dave, it's not your fault because he wasn't fixable. Because there's always this idea in the NFL, there's the new situation theory where a guy just needs a new situation. But time and time again, a guy goes to a new situation and it's nothing. With quarterbacks, there's been a decent track record the last few years. I look at Baker, I look at Darnold, both in Carolina, actually.
Maybe it's a Carolina issue, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, but what about Josh Rosen? What about like all these other flameouts like that didn't really amount to anything? I love him, but my guy Mariota, like he got to a few new situations. He wasn't really able to get his career back on track. Jameis is another.
I was going to say famous Jameis too, right?
Yeah. So like that's just a few examples off the top of our head, but there are far more of those guys than the Baker Darnold guys who were able to kind of capture that magic and kind of get their career back on track.
We're seeing it right now with, if you want to go to Daniel Jones, now maybe Daniel Jones is the Darnold of this year. I'm not going to go that route. Our guy Justin Fields, who we're not going to talk about today, but our guy Fields is now on his third team in as many years. Zach Wilson is on his third team in as many years. Jets, Broncos, Dolphins. So yeah, we've seen far more top picks, maybe just flame out and not be good than it is. Oh, they need to change the scenery. We had our change the scenery award last week. I don't think Bryce Young made our list.
No.
And I don't think he'll be making our list in the near future either. So, yeah.
Because I don't think he's good enough to make our list. As terrible as that sounds.
That might just be what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be right. Now, we can get into a former number one overall pick as well. Jared Goff, where are we at on him before we it's
it was game. One of the most embarrassing quarterback displays I can remember. Because if you're Jared Goff, you're coming off an incredible statistical season. You lose at home. Granted, I understand the injuries on both sides, but I don't care. You lose at home to the Commanders. You have to have some competitive spirit where you didn't play to your level. You got outplayed by a thin rookie, Jaden Daniels, in that game.
Yeah, he turned the ball.
Right, and like sure, at points you kind of teased the comeback, but it was never that serious. You laid an egg when you needed to kind of rise to the occasion the most, right?
Right,
and then. All offseason, you hear about the two coordinators leaving. You hear about Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. They're gone. And everyone's fading this beloved Detroit Lions team. And then what do? Against the team that has had the opposite buzz effect, the Green Bay Packers, who I feel like I was going crazy talking about, like, okay, why are they a Super Bowl contender because they added Micah Parsons? Like, why does that make any sense? Yeah. I understand Mike is this incredible pass rusher. I get that. But what about all the 18 other concerns that they didn't cheer up this off? Okay, whatever. Okay.
I was in the same boat.
Back to the, yeah. Right. So Goff should be looking at this game like, okay, they're getting all this attention now. Let me remind them who we are. Let me remind them who I am. And what does he do? He does the 2024 Kirk Cousins Award of, I'm going to stand so still in this pocket, it's going to hurt. I'm going to get hit in the most violent ways because I refuse to move at any point. I cannot shuffle in the pocket. Why? Because I can't move apparently anymore. It looked like he had 2 torn ACLs. It was so embarrassing. It was ridiculous. It was actually one of the most pathetic quarterback performances I've ever seen from a guy that like we respect. That we're like, okay, Jared Goff's a good player. Like
I have him in my top 10. He's literally top 10.
This wasn't a Malik Willis Tennessee performance that we don't expect anything of.
Yeah.
This isn't, a Zach Wilson Jets performance that we expect nothing of. No, this is a good quarterback. And it was so ridiculous how inept he was throughout this entire game. And there has to be panic. I don't care if it's week 1 or not. I'm not going to do the Bill Simmons, like they're going to miss the playoff thing. I'm not doing that quite yet.
That's what I thought you were doing.
But... No, not yet. Not yet. I want to see at least a few more weeks.
Give me a month of football, please. Yeah, I need a month.
Mike, I don't think it was just the play calling. I understand it's gonna take a little while longer. Okay? And I understand that Gibbs really couldn't get going, and that's a big problem. Because we haven't really seen what this team looks like the last few years when the running game hasn't been able to get going. They've been that efficient with Montgomery and Gibbs.
Yeah, that's
so this was pretty rare that they weren't able to get the running game going. So that could be a one-off.
That's up to play action. That basically is what Goff. That's how he can.
Yes, that's how he thrives, right?
That's his bread and butter, yeah.
But again, you lose a key offensive lineman in the middle, Frank Ragnow, to retirement. Okay. Yeah. And not only that, it's just like, is Goff losing his confidence, because when Goff doesn't have an elite run game, we've seen it in the past, it seems like the confidence dips because he is so play action dependent. He is so dependent on like setting up, having the safeties come down, setting up stuff beyond that, crossers, down the field shots. Post down the field. He likes to be aggressive. Those sluggos, he likes to throw it to Jameson Williams. Like, you have to be super concerned, right? This isn't just like one of those like week one, like, ooh, like to me, I'm almost excusing the Tua performance more than the Goff one. That's how bad I thought Goff looked. Yes, that's how bad I thought he looked. I thought it was like that troubling because, Mike, there was years in Los Angeles where you didn't really know what to make of Goff, right? Like, was he this floor raiser or was he a product of McVay? And then in Detroit, it kind of became, is he a product of Ben Johnson or is he just this good? And I think the jury decided, well, it's 2 to 3 guys at this point. It has to be Goff.
Has to be Goff, right.
But are we sure? And I like Ben Johnson a lot, and I think he was super important to that team, and I really liked the concepts he had on Monday, despite Caleb Williams kind of peeing down his leg.
By the way, he goes back to Detroit next week.
So, right, of course. So we'll see how that goes. But, Mike, like, clearly it wasn't just play calling, right? Like, this was a laid egg. This was bad.
No, he looked physically like he couldn't move. There was a 4th and 2 that they went for in the red zone that he could have easily picked up with his legs, and if he could move theoretically, which he obviously couldn't, it was so bad. But I'm not gonna excuse the Tua one more than this one because I think we both like Green Bay's defense. At least up front, we like their defense.
Yeah, for sure.
With the additions of Micah Parsons. So I can chalk it up to it's just one bad divisional game against a good defense, or you can also chalk it up to, hey, it's the first game post your offensive coordinator that you've had for the last few years. We've seen that certainly in the past. I mean, Baker's now on his 8th different offensive coordinator in 8 years. So it certainly could affect guys and other guys it doesn't. I mean, we'll see. But for one game, I don't know what to make of it yet. Like, I want to see against Chicago in a dome, not to go back to the cliche thing, but Goff in a dome is much better than Goff in an outdoor situation. So,
for sure, yeah.
Goff has his dome game against Chicago on a short week. I mean, the Bears are coming off a short week and a loss. So it would be panic mode for me if Goff looks terrible against Chicago. It's not panic mode for me in what was a very lackluster, terrible performance against Green Bay, no doubt about it. But I have to make more than one. And if you want to go back to the Washington game, you can certainly do that. But I need a little bit more than a couple games of evidence for me to hit the panic button on Goff. I maybe would hit the panic button on Detroit's coordinators because we have no idea if they're good or not. Right. I think we kind of think that Goff is good, right? I mean, I think Goff's good, but
I think he's good, but I think too often I see him struggle when they need him to be just adequate. Like, they don't even need him to be good. He just needs to be adequate, and he struggles immensely. And I think he's so dependent on, can he get great blocking? Can you have a great output from the running attack? And I think so often the last few seasons, that's just been so baked into Detroit that we kind of forgot that that's kind of who he is. He is reliant on those things.
I think the Ragnow thing is a legit point. Like that, he retired and it looked like he retired. Like, it did not look like the same old Detroit. You mentioned they couldn't run the ball at all. That, I think, is also concerning. As concerning as Goff, because if they can't run the ball, then it leaks into everything that we just talked about. But without Frank Ragnow, I know they drafted a couple guys in the interior, but it seems like it's going to take more than one game for them to figure that out. Like, I didn't think they put up 6 points prior to garbage time, that touchdown, but it was basically a 6-point performance in that entire 60-minute game from Detroit, which is just not good enough.
We'll get to one of my favorite topics of the week because we need some optimism to close out this segment. Arguably the second best quarterback performance of the entire weekend. I'll give number 1 to Josh Allen.
Okay, of course.
It could be 3. You could give Jackson 2 if you wanted, but he's at least in the conversation for 2. Allen was...
I thought you were going Justin Fields with this one.
Oh, Jesus, stop it. Justin Herbert in Sao Paulo on a international stage in front of the world, globally on YouTube. He outdueled arguably the championship belt holder for the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes, and he did it fairly soundly. Mahomes had some unbelievable Mahomes wow plays.
Second half was...
But in totality, Herbert was definitely far more efficient and rose to the occasion. And it was one of those games that kind of reminded everyone, hey, this guy's pretty awesome. Sometimes, anyway. He's pretty awesome sometimes. And it seemed like finally they took the training wheels off this guy, which was ridiculous because he was, again, 2020 draft.
Of course, yeah.
At this point, he should be slinging it all the time. It felt like last year, Greg Roman, again, it was kind of just handicapping him, and finally he was like, okay, we're going to go for this. And boy, did they go for it, because he torched Kansas City, who had a pretty solid defense last year, especially their secondary was pretty good, and he just lit them up. And again, it was a game that no one really was giving to the Chargers. There's always the faders that were like, hey, like, you know, there's always that, but it felt like, especially if you're looking at the season outlook, a lot of people were like, Herbert just can't beat Mahomes. Like, they were giving this series sweep to Kansas City, and that was kind of that.
And then Rashawn Slater goes down. And then Rashawn Slater goes down. It's like, okay.
Slater in the offseason, that was such a big deal, especially to, like, people looking at their over-under. People were seemingly kind of writing him off for that, and I kind of understand because the offensive line was super up and down last year. Some weeks they looked awesome. Other weeks they were super shaky. So I understood it, but this looked like a prove-it game from Herbert. This looked like an FU game. And look, I'll be the first to say he looked terrible in that Texans playoff game. I think the Jacksonville one gets held against them a little bit too much because I thought Staley really handed that game in. It was like one of those, like, Herbert, can you save us with, like, the last drive? And he couldn't. But I thought it was reminiscent of a different Herbert blown lead against Bo Nix at Auburn, against Auburn in 2019.
Week 1.
I believe that game was in Atlanta. Or
yes.
Somewhere in a dome.
I think it was in Dallas. It might have been in Dallas.
Sure. And Cristobal did the same thing. He just kind of handed it in. So I think really when discussing Herbert, you can hold the Houston game against them. And I understand not loving that Jacksonville the second half of that game. But to me, it's been one of these cases of this guy's really awesome. The team's let him down time and time again. Why can't people just understand that? And I know you're not as big of a Herbert guy as me. I understand there are plenty of detractive points against this guy. But after watching this Week 1 performance, A, do you think this is sustainable? And B, are you starting to see potentially a shift for him where, okay, this guy is rising to a different level and this guy might be able to insert himself with that upper echelon of NFL quarterbacks? Because I know, Mike, that this is going to be a tough question until the playoffs run around. Like, my question to everyone is this, right? If they're the 2 seed somehow, if they win the AFC West somehow, okay? This is just hypothetical.
Sure.
And they destroy the garbage 7 seed Raiders, Patriots, Dolphins, whoever the hell that is.
It's going to be a garbage 7 seed. Let's just go ahead and put that out there.
Are you going to be really moved because he finally won a playoff game? Like, that's where I'm at right now. So Mike, answer those questions. Is this sustainable? And is he good enough where he could potentially rise into the ranks with the cast he has around him this year? Because I think it's super dependent on, like, the where are we now end of it.
I think that, well, first I want to mention the point with Greg Roman where you said, you know, the training wheels were on. Rich Eisen on the broadcast was, like, surprised each time the Chargers dropped back. He was like, wow, the Chargers are throwing it again. And this is not something you would normally say for a guy who's making $45-50 million a year. It's like, oh, wait, they're throwing it again? But it's because the Chargers really don't throw the ball that much. So it was the fact that they did it a lot, and they kind of just let him uncork it. And they're like, maybe this is how we have to win this game, because the Chiefs are very stout against the run. As we know, last year they were. I was very impressed, obviously, with Herbert. Herbert was fantastic. He played a flawless football game. What I was surprised about was how clean they kept him outside of when KC, sent extra guys. But, Herbert had all the time in the world back there to find open receivers. Shout out Quentin Johnston. Where did he come from? He had an awesome game.
He was phenomenal.
He was phenomenal. Did we happen? Is that sustainable? That's another question that I really don't have the answer to. Keenan Allen, we got him on him early. We were like, okay, do we need to see this? He dropped the ball. And then he caught a touchdown pass later in the game. It's like, hey, there he is. We were just calling him out. And then, and then we obviously know McConkey's great. They got Tyler Conklin involved. So, I mean, is all of that stuff sustainable? Maybe. I don't know. Week 1's usually the big liar week, but the way the Chargers looked, it certainly looked like they were one of the top teams. I don't know if they're going to be a 2 seed. We like Denver a lot. KC will be fine. The Raiders are sneaky. So I don't know for sure if it's sustainable. I think the way Herbert played certainly could be sustainable if that's the way Greg Roman just decides every game. We're going to be like, all right, let's just put everything on Herbert's shoulders. Is that sustainable for playoff success? I don't know, because it's a little Josh Allen-y where it's like, hey, save us. We're going to start running the ball out. We're going to do a bunch of dumb stuff. We got Najee Harris. We got a rookie running back. So, I mean, running out of bounds there at the end for Omar Hampton, gave Mahomes a chance there at the end. They go down and score, and then Herbert obviously puts the game away with the scramble. But, some stuff like that, there's still some Charger-ish stuff there that goes on. So I don't know for sure if I'm bought in. I definitely think he needs a playoff win. I don't care if it's against the garbage 7 seed Bengals or Steelers.
Okay.
He needs a playoff win because right now we only have 2 games to go off of, and it's against 2 AFC South teams that won 9 and 8 games, or 9 or 10 games in Jacksonville in 22, and then Houston last year in 24. So those are the only games you have to go off of, and right now the playoff success isn't there. So, I mean, right now for him specifically, he definitely needs a playoff win. I don't care who it's against. You'd like to get it against, for the last few years in the AFC, we've seen these giant quarterbacks go up. We've seen Lamar versus Mahomes. We've seen Lamar versus Josh. We've seen Josh versus Mahomes. We've seen Mahomes versus Burrow. Burrow versus Josh. I mean, we've seen these 4 guys kind of go at it in the last 3 years. Can Herbert get him? Can he get his team into that conversation? Just get to the second weekend in the divisional round, and if you're playing in one of those classic AFC games against a Lamar or against a Josh or against a Patrick, then of course there's nothing else you really can say. Even as a agenda pusher like me who's pushing against Herbert, I'm like, I don't want to throw him in these convos when he hasn't won a playoff game.
So Mike, question though, if he plays in that game and he loses but he balls out, like let's say it's Buffalo or Baltimore and he just looks just as good as he did this past weekend, but that Hampton, again, like a Chargerish play, like the Hampton runs out of bounds and the other guy comes down and wins the game. Would that do it for you? It just needs to be like a prove it, let me see it in the biggest moment.
If he goes toe-to-toe with one of those guys in the playoffs and loses, that's totally fine. The problem was last year he went toe-to-toe with C.J. Stroud, and they did not look on the same – it did not look like 2 quarterbacks on the same level. It looked like one guy was much better than the other one. The Lawrence one was weird. He threw like 4 interceptions in the first half. They kind of gave that game away. That's a very rare – that's all Chargers. But nonetheless – it wasn't like Herbert.
That was peak Charger game.
Yeah, the Chargers got the 20-0 lead because of all those short fields. It wasn't like Herbert got them the lead. It wasn't like he gave up the lead either. But it was a weird game where the Jags did everything. The Jags did everything to give them they spotted them like a 4-touchdown lead, and then the Jags Staley also did everything to kind of give them the lead away. So it was a very strange game where you can't really make. It wasn't like a quarterback dependent game. Like he didn't do much, but it was also just not really in his hands most of the time. So the Texans game is the big one here. I think that he just has to prove that he can in the playoffs go toe-to-toe with one of these AFC quarterbacks right now, which right now we haven't seen. But if he plays like the way he did in Brazil in week 1 in a playoff game, win or lose, then that would move a lot of people, I think. That's the only critics of Justin Herbert is really that.
Right. And, I'm quadrupling down on my Justin Herbert stock, but we're going to see where we're at with team stock right now entering week 2. We're going to start with the buy low candidates. So the teams that maybe didn't look awesome in week 1 that we want to buy into. And I've talked about it a few times already. Denver. I am buying low on the Denver Broncos. And look, Bo Nix had one of the worst games I've ever seen him play post-Auburn. It was actually shocking to me how middling he looked against this Titans defense, which is actually decent, I think.
Yeah, I think
it's okay. And I think their overall numbers were a product of such a terrible offense, giving up those short fields. You see that a lot, where you have like these sneaky decent defenses that the DOA and stuff, the numbers aren't really checking out.
Right.
But I think Denver, if Nix can kind of just get back to where he was at the end of last season, which I think was like a borderline top 15 quarterback, which I think is where he can easily be. You're just hoping he can take that next step forward, but you don't even really need him to at this level of defense right now.
You don't have to even have him play well.
And I think RJ Harvey had a few nice plays, which I thought was really encouraging because I'm not an Estime guy. I'm not a J.K. Dobbins guy, although Dobbins looked decent,
had some
actually.
Plays too.
Yeah, he made some decent plays. But I think they kind of saw what they can be. Troy Franklin finally caught some Bo Nix passes, which was shocking to me because, man, those guys had the worst chemistry in the world last year.
You mentioned it would get better now. You mentioned that.
Yeah, I did, and I'm glad it did early. And I think, I don't expect Bo to play that poorly again. And I think you'll see more of the passing attack, and it'll be a lot of Sutton. I think Franklin's going to take a big step this year, and we didn't even get to really see like Pat Bryant. Evan Ingram got banged up in that game, so we'll see what he looks like. So I think Denver, classic buy low team, shaky week 1 game, but it was like one of those games they probably shouldn't have won at all. Mims had a crucial fumble. Bo had all the picks and whatnot in a fumble.
Our guy Mims, yeah.
Yeah, they somehow were able to pull it out. So, yeah, I'm still – give me all the Denver stock.
Yeah, I echo everything you said there. Before I get into mine, Tennessee, I think their defense is sneaky underrated. Jeffrey Simmons, made a boneheaded play.
He was awesome on Sunday.
He's awesome, though.
He's really good.
Yeah, it was just a weird game. By the way, I think that the Broncos, they have the Colts next week, who, like I mentioned earlier, the 29th ranked defense from a year ago. If Bo Nix plays well against them, I think we can safely say the Dolphins have bigger issues than we even thought. If it's back-to-back bad weeks for Bo Nix, maybe the Colts defense is good. I don't know. Who knows? But there's still we got a month. Give me a month on some of these other teams that I have to see more of. My team here, and I'm buying super, super low. You cannot get much lower than this. The Cincinnati Bengals, first of all, no one is talking about the Cincinnati Bengals right now, and they shouldn't. The Bengals were so bad in week 1. If you watch that game, they had 7 total yards in the second half of that football game.
I think they've avoided like vitriol because not only did they win the game, but it's like the AFC North, you just expect like wacky things to happen.
Exactly.
But you are on the money. Like it was bad. It was like scarily bad with this team that is so invested in their offense all the way around. And they need to win games and shootout. They did nothing. Absolutely nothing.
There was a play on TikTok, actually a few plays, where I saw after the game on the all-22 angle, because sometimes you have to get after the game. And there's some Zach Taylor stuff that makes no sense to me. He's like, hey, let's run it right into Myles Garrett for the 4th time in 5 plays. Let's just run it right to him. And let's see how it goes. It's like, oh, we lost a yard? No way. Let's do it again. It was very strange how the Bengals just sat there. It almost like they sat on a lead, but it was a 1-point game for majority of the second half. I mean, it was very strange. And then, thankfully, Cleveland's guy misses an extra point, and then at the end of the game with 2 minutes left, he misses a 20-yard field goal, and the Bengals win the game. So no one's crushing them on Sunday or Monday morning, whatever it is. But that was really embarrassing. And yet, they won the game. And this kind of goes back to my overarching point about, things evening out in the football universe, if you will. The Bengals had so many weird, fluky, you talk about the AFC North having weird games, just weird, crazy, fluky endings. The Bengals had so many of those games last year that went against them, or they lost a game. It's like, how did the Bengals lose that game? Like, they were better, and then they lose the game. This game, they had no business winning, and they won, which tells me if there's a time to buy Cincinnati, it should be right now. We talk about the gimmick thing they do week 1 every year. They have this weird gimmick. It's always September in general, where they start the season and they're like, we don't really care. We'll figure it out. And we start 0-2 every year. This year, they start 1-0 for the first time since they made the Super Bowl in 21. And I think if there's a time to buy Cincinnati, it would be at the low. I mean, they looked so poor against one of the worst rosters in football in Cleveland. It was embarrassing. Jamar Chase had like 2 fantasy points if you're into that kind of thing. Denzel Ward usually has, gives him some trouble, but that was really pathetic on all levels. And yet the Bengals won. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a penny on the Bengals. Hey, maybe they're better than we think. Maybe their defense is fine. I don't know.
So you are buying like penny stock on the Bengals right now.
I'm not buying high. So I'm just gonna throw. It's a little, a couple dollars here, a couple pennies. I'm not gonna throw anything crazy on the Bengals. But I think they looked terrible and they won the game, which tells me something. It gives me something.
I do have a penny stock that I am buying high on. The Jacksonville Jaguars, who again we've alluded to a few times now.
You've come over, yes.
Trevor Lawrence looked fine, I guess. He looked okay. He had some great moments early, and then he kind of flustered out late. But it was one of those games, they didn't really need Trevor Lawrence. The defense looked awesome. They gave Bryce Young a disastrous afternoon. And I loved what I saw from the team from an energy standpoint. They looked committed to winning.
Yeah.
And I loved the ETN revelation where he looked... Yeah. So terrible the last few years, especially efficiency-wise. He was just giving them nothing. And then he has such a good week 1. They're like Tank Bigsby. Like, let's get out of town, man.
We got ETN.
I like the wide receivers. Brian Thomas, I know he didn't do much, but when you have a playmaker like that, Hunter on the other side, Diami Brown, who I really like, my tight end, Britton Strange, who's on my fantasy team. That's how much I like him. He had a good performance. And you just kind of couple all these things together. Like the defense is kind of taking a step forward. The offense looks to have more life. They have decent talent all around. And you start looking, and we were talking about this last week, the AFC South's winnable. Houston lost right out of the gate, and that's a
Yeah.
game that was like a toss-up for them. Who knows how many toss-up games they're going to win. The offense looked really, really bad, especially that offensive line for Houston.
Yeah.
And I like LA's defense.
It confirmed all the things we thought about Houston, really.
Yeah, there was so many concerns that came to light, and again, maybe they'll subside, but so far, exactly what we had in mind. So if the AFC South is up for grabs, we already talked about Tennessee, but Jacksonville, they look like they have enough pieces to be in position to kind of make that step forward and get back into the playoffs. They'll need Lawrence to be a little bit better going forward, but again, first week of the season, new scheme for him. There's been so much turnover throughout his tenure in Jacksonville. I want to see in a few more weeks, but I really like them as like this buy high, kind of flirting with either winning the AFC South or being a 7 seed. I just think they're a team that no one's really talking about right now, and I think they can make serious noise.
Yeah, they play my buy low team, Cincinnati, this week. So I want to see more out of Trevor. But, last year the Panthers were so pathetic. I mean, you could run on them whenever – me and you could run on the Panthers last year. It's just, hey, run at Jadeveon Clowney. He can't stop the run anymore. That's basically what every team did last year to Carolina. So Jacksonville did what I expected them to do. They ran it efficiently. I know we were kind of a little bit out on ETN. We were dipping our toes and other things. But, the Jags did what they needed to do. I thought the Panthers would be better than that. And credit to Jacksonville. My buying high team is a team that you slandered last week. Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh my goodness. Did anyone anticipate Aaron Rodgers, who we thought maybe he's just going to be bad? He comes back to the Meadowlands and has 34 points, 4 touchdowns. Looks like the prime Aaron Rodgers, except he still can't move. But holy cow, DK Metcalf, a little 4 catches, 75 yards. How do you like that? Calvin Austin, your guy. Making plays. Ben
Skoranek found the end zone.
Ben Skoranek, we didn't know he was on the team. He found the end zone. So credit Jonnu Smith, a little pop pass to the tight end. Arthur Smith getting creative in the red zone. I've never seen Pittsburgh be creative in the red zone. They're usually, we get to the red zone, let's kick our field goal. We got Boswell. And now they're scoring touchdowns in the red zone. What's going on here? So I'm buying high. It's not that I think this is sustainable for 18 games or 18 weeks, because I don't think Aaron's going to be able to. I still have huge reservations with the Steelers' offensive line, and I still have huge reservations about Aaron when he's not on the move and they're changing the launch point and changing the pocket. So I still have reservations, but I think we like the Jets defense. I mean, I think we like their players. I think that's the one thing where you're like, the Jets
have some decent players.
They have some decent players. Aaron Glenn, we like what he's doing. And the Steelers did whatever they want offensively. And, I think this is somewhat sustainable with their division. And, they always play well in division games. You know how Tomlin does his thing. And if Aaron looks like, it doesn't have to be anything Green Bay, but as far as if it's better than what it was in the Jets, I like the Steelers' infrastructure more than I like the Jets' infrastructure for sure. So as far as just winning games, I know Tomlin can do that to a degree, or at least, preserve his non-losing season stuff. I think if Aaron just stays afloat, he doesn't. The thing is with the Steelers and why I'm buying high on them is he doesn't have to play this well for them to win every week. He threw 4 touchdowns. He was very efficient. I think the Steelers' defense is better than what we saw on Sunday. Like, I have evidence of Tomlin's defenses, at least this decade, in the 2020s, of their defense being better. And I don't know if it's because Cam Hayward was holding out until the very last second. Highsmith was good, TJ Watt, so on and so forth. They have old corners. We documented that already. But I think the Steelers' defense should be better than what they were in week 1. They've just given us no reason to think otherwise. So I think that Aaron, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the Steelers will be decent this year. Maybe they'll win 10 games again. You're not feeling the Steelers. I'm assuming you're not.
So fluky. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep my sell high super short. The Cardinals blow. They absolutely blow. They stink.
Yeah.
It's the Saints. I believe, if I remember the stat correctly, Spencer Rattler, 2% of his throws were considered bad throws. That's how bad the Cardinals are. They can't force Spencer Rattler into bad throws, okay?
Had a lot of bad throws.
I'm not going to go too much into it. We talk about it every week. This team is not good. I actually like plenty of their players, which kind of irritates me the most on this team.
Right.
But, yeah, I've already seen some, that NFC West wide open. Watch out for those Cardinals. I'm selling so high. You can have all of it. Just take all of it. I'm so good.
I'm not taking any of it, actually. I'm glad you mentioned them. I think we agree on this one. If I had a sell high, other than the Steelers, I would have went right here with Arizona with you. We don't have to spend too much time on this one. So my sell high, outside of the Cardinals, which I didn't use, obviously, I went with I was gonna go with the Packers. Now, stop me if I'm wrong, because we're not as high on the Packers, but the general consensus is they are the Week 1 champions. Like they
Seems
are
like the world is on them. Yeah,
the world thinks they're the best team in football. Which I was like, I'm flirting with. I'm like, should I sell high on them? That being said, they play tonight, and if they win tonight, I'm gonna look really stupid. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna say no sell high on the Packers yet. But if they get to 2-0 and people are saying that the Super Bowl champions already, maybe I am gonna sell high because I don't think they're that good yet. So it's just 1 week. They looked very good against Detroit. But my sell high is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders, who beat your Patriots. I think this is a team that thinks a lot of people think they're like a trendy playoff team. Nick Wright has them as like the second or third best. I think he had the finishing second in the AFC West, behind only the Chiefs. I'm not there. I don't think they're better than Denver roster-wise. I don't think they're better than the Chargers roster-wise. I think they got a nice cross-country win against a young quarterback and Vrabel, who's still fixing things up on the offensive line. I'm not there on the Raiders. I think they looked fine. I don't love like their defense, and I still don't love their defense after.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like I'm just not there on the Raiders. I think they're a fine 7-win team, and nothing more, nothing less. Maybe again, Gino's a solid floor raiser. He's okay. I don't think he's anything to write home about, despite what the nerds think. I think he's a fine quarterback, but he faces the Chargers next week. This schedule gets a little bit tricky for the Raiders. All right, there's not a lot of no disrespect, New England's on the schedule. Like they avoid a lot of those teams. So in a division where 3 teams, we like these rosters. We like Kansas City's roster, obviously. We love the Chargers. We love the Broncos. I don't think the Raiders are quite like after 1 week. And I think most people were on New England. Maybe this is why the Raiders hype is at an all-time high right now, is because they went cross country, early kick, got a win. I'm just not really that impressed. I picked the Raiders to win the game, but I'm not like, oh, they moved me to the point where I'm like, they might be a trendy 7 seed. I'm not really seeing that. Now, that being said, the 7 seed in the AFC is going to be bad anyway, so maybe they do get it, but I'm not there.
New England missed too many plays, and I just don't see Herbert or even Nick's missing the plays May missed week 1 in his 13th career game or something along those lines.
He hasn't even played a full season of football yet. Yeah.
No, not even close, really. So, look, they are so clearly false goods, and they are so clearly 4th in the division talent-wise.
100%.
Will they eke out some wins behind a quarterback who I think is above average to an extent when he needs to be? Other weeks he looks kind of terrible. He kind of flirts around being the hipster top 10 quarterback or the very apparent not top 20 quarterback. He's kind of somewhere in the middle all the time. And look, I just think there were so many plays again that May miss that.
We're left in the field, yeah.
Right, yeah. Look, sell low. We can do this super quick. The Giants looked about as awful as we expected, if not worse.
Worse than I expected, actually. I thought they'd score in the red zone. I don't know.
Yeah, this idea that this defense is going to be, fearsome and lead them to victories, and Russell Wilson is going to game manage his way into having another decent season, that looks off the table. And look, Kim Scadabow, I'm so happy that he's in a team where people will have eyes on him because he's in the New York media market and people will enjoy watching him. But man, you can't just truck 8 guys per run and expect to last in an NFL season. It's fun, I love it, but it's just not sustainable. And outside of him, it's what else are people talking about around this team in the first week from a positive standpoint? Nothing. Dable already seems to be back on the hot seat. Jackson Dart's name is being tossed around as
already.
Is he going to be the first rookie quarterback off the bench to be inserted? It's dire in New York right now with the Giants.
It was so embarrassing. I think the frisky Giants. Let's put that to dead. Let's just dead that because I'm not seeing the frisky Giants this year. Dable's already arguing with Malik Neighbors on the sideline. They didn't dap up. Whatever it was. It was a little again more weirder stuff with the Giants. They scored.
Yeah, it was a little tiff, but
it was a little tiff, but no touchdowns against the Commanders' defense. Should be better than it was last year. But this is not the 90s, the 80s Bears. This isn't even the Broncos of this year. So
they were horrific last year.
They were really bad
under the table horrific defense that Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner would make a play a week that would kind of almost make you forget how bad they were. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're still fixing some things over there, but this was really embarrassing by the Giants to the point where the clock is now accelerated. It's okay, let's get Dart in here because this season's already over. It's one of those bad week 1 games to the point where it's okay, we know Russ is bad at this point. He can't really move anymore, which is his whole superpower. That was his whole magic in Seattle. It's let me extend plays and create in the backfield. He can't do that anymore. He still has that lollipop moon ball, but I think even that's a little bit overrated at this point in
Yeah,
time.
it's kind of gone at this point.
Right now, there's nothing about the Giants that I want to watch right now. Like they're off my screen by Halloween. Maybe unless Dark.
They're off my screen this week. I mean, I barely had them. I told you before.
I didn't. I watched.
I had to rewatch the game, but they're done. Unless like it's a standalone game, they are not on the screen, and they will not be on the screen anytime soon. I guess when Dart gets in, like you always want to check in on the rookies.
Okay, maybe they'll be frisky now, but I'm totally out on. I wasn't really even in per se, but I'm the people who said frisky Giants. I'm out.
Mike, I usually have 5 games on at a time. It's a Patriots game plus a quad box, and then the afternoon window you'll do the 4. So that's 9 games on a Sunday outside of Sunday Night Football.
The 3 primetime games.
I can't imagine them being on any screen at any time unless it's a primetime game.
Yeah, even when teams have bye weeks and there's like only 12 games on this week instead of 16, whatever it is, they're not making my screen.
Even then, it might be one of those like we'll catch the Giants on a primetime game, and I'll be like, might catch up on whatever.
Let me see if there's any ACC Thursday night games in Louisville. Let me just. I'll have this on the background. I'm not watching the Giants.
Is there a new like prestige TV show out that I can catch up on?
The Giants.
I'll watch it later.
I'll see the highlights on Twitter. I'll see the weird Malik Neighbor stuff afterwards. I don't need to see that.
So, if you're a sports fan, you can catch me and Mike. We'll be back on these airwaves Sunday or Monday, one of those 2 days, presumably, and we're going to start trying to do 2 a week here. That is the absolute goal for now. We'll see how that works. We'll see how that takes off, but the reception from week 1 was so positive that, again, if you're a sports fan, this is the end of the sports section because we are going to transition into Big Brother, and we will do more of this culture stuff in the next few weeks. We are about 2 weeks away from Survivor kicking off, so we'll be covering that from the jump. We didn't want to do Big Brother in the middle. It would kind of be weird, but it is appropriate to do a state of the franchise address.
Oh, boy.
Given where Big Brother as a whole is heading. So, obviously, if you're listening to this part, you're a Big Brother fan, and you know what happened. Rachel Riley got evicted during the White Lotus twist, which, Mike, believe it or not a lot of people know what the White Lotus is compared to, like, me and you. Like, at least 3 people close to me were like, what is this? Yeah. And I was like, oh, so there's this HBO show called The White Lotus.
Yes.
And it's, you have to explain the whole thing. So, and by the way, not on Paramount Plus, so I didn't really understand that part of it either.
No, it's an HBO
not a Paramount property. It's an HBO property. I didn't know if they're going to do like a Landman twist or something, like an actual Paramount.
By the way, I think it's because Mike White, who was on Survivor, also a CBS show, is that
right.
Might be the relation there?
I assume he's probably like a Big Brother fan. I got that whole part, but still a little silly to me. But regardless of that, White Locust twist. The whole point of the twist is, you gotta find the maze, and if you're able to complete the maze in the allotted time, you are safe, and you get to choose who goes next. If not, you are eliminated from the game as a whole. And Rachel, who, look, was she running the season? Yes. Was she probably going to be on the chopping block in the very imminent future? Yes. At the same time, both can be true. But it's one of the, if not the worst post-week 1 evictions I've ever seen on the franchise. It's definitely the worst in our lifetime anyway. Because you've always had those like terrible week 1 evictions where some guys, like, again, don't complete a challenge, whatever, and they're lost. Glenn, yes. I was trying to buy time to remember his name.
Yeah,
Glenn, the infamous Glenn. Yeah. He just looked so goofy. But regardless, he deserved to play the game.
He did.
And Mike, this eviction, or lack thereof, it was more of an elimination than an eviction.
She didn't get evicted. She just got eliminated from the game.
She just got axed, basically.
Yeah.
This elimination has been so controversial. Again, we're taping this before the Big Brother episode tonight, the live eviction on Thursday, where Keanu, Ashley, or Will, thank you, South Carolina Gamecock superfan Will.
He's not going anywhere.
Will be evicted. I think Will's safe. I think we can. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
I think he should be fine.
But regardless, one of those people will be going home, and we're at the point in the season where there's not going to be really a satisfying winner unless Keanu somehow like runs the table.
Wins his way to the final, right?
Right, even that's a stretch. So, Mike, bigger picture, beyond just BB27, Big Brother as a whole, this cast, in my opinion, second year in a row where the cast has been terrible. Last year, Chelsea seemed like one of the only gamers on the cast.
He was good. Yeah.
Even, like, if you look at the finals, MJ was okay.
Cam didn't know what she was doing, really.
I remember I texted you this as a joke at one point in the season. I thought Cam was playing the best game of all time because I thought his master plan was he was going to win the last two HOHs and say, guys, hey.
I was throwing everything.
You actually thought a D1 athlete couldn't beat all of you guys? Are you kidding me? We both know that obviously was the case.
That was not the case.
I thought that would have been the best reveals ever. It would have been like a
fantastic gameplay.
7-esque reveal, but regardless. The casting's been really bad. The twists have been worse, arguably. Allison Gardner, the producer, her head's been on the chopping block all week, no pun intended, as far as, like, there needs to be change within this franchise. Where are you at with Big Brother as a whole and the recent gameplay? Because it's been really, really bad, particularly the last two seasons, and this season has been arguably... we thought it couldn't get worse with Survivor, the level of gameplay there, where it felt like maybe 3 people were playing Survivor. Feels like... maybe one person was playing Big Brother and everyone else was attempting to.
This was probably the worst twist in the history of the show. Because I think we all hate those. We mentioned Glenn, Jody, another one left from the very
Jody,
first
yes.
BB14. Those people who never really get to play the game and they're out night one because of a challenge. This is right in the middle of the season, and people are running the game. I think Rachel's playing with a relatively pedestrian cast. They don't know what they're doing, but she was running the game. And she gets evicted on like a pretty goofy twist in the middle of the game because of this mastermind thing or whatever it is. Like Big Brother's always had dumb twists. This one takes the cake. My overall thoughts on the season, like it's this weird Vinny thing where he's so in good with people, but he's playing like a BB17 Vanessa game with all the crying and the it's very strange. He's
Mike. You want to know what it reminds me of? It's a tribute band, but not even the ones that go on tour. It's a tribute band that goes to like the local like hall, like VFW Hall or Elks Hall or something. It's like that level of tribute to Vanessa, where it's like so pales in comparison, it's almost offensive.
It is kind of offensive, but it was like when I rewatched that season like a couple months ago, I was like, man, she's crying.
I did too. Yeah.
She's getting a lot of like sympathy that she somehow escapes because she's in with these bigger alliances, which he is now in with a lot of people. But then he's also in this weird thing with Lauren. He's on the other side of the house that he has a final 2 with. He's got final 2s with everybody. It's very strange. It's him and Morgan thing where he's like, we don't have to get into that. But it's well documented what's going on there. Everyone else is basically just floating around the game. Like Ava's not doing anything. Ashley's not doing anything. She was essentially just playing Rachel's game. I think my guy Will has the best social game in the house by a wide margin. It's kind of the anti-Keanu where he can't win anything. I don't think he's this bad at challenges, but right now he can't win anything. My guy Will can't win anything. Keanu maybe has the worst social game in the entire history of this game, but he's an awesome competitor. He may just win his way to final 2 if this blockbuster thing ever maybe ever stops. So it's very interesting. This cast is very weird. At this point, I find myself rooting for Keanu. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Me too, yeah.
I had Lauren stock because I think she's the Mackenzie of this year. I think she's going to start running these competitions at the end of the year and win herself to possible final 3, final 2, whatever. But I don't think she actually knows what she's doing. And I have a hard time imagining her talking in front of a jury and saying, hey, here's why I deserve to win. Because I have no idea why she deserves to win other than I think she's a pretty good competitor. But if Keanu's gone, I think that's like the best competitor left. I think she's maybe Kelly. I mean, it's just a bunch of makeshift nonsense with the rest of this cast. After tonight, there's gonna be 7 people left, and all 7 have immense flaws. So I have no idea what to make of the season right now, other than I hope my guy Will starts competing better in challenges because I think he has the best social game. Everyone loves Will. Everyone is in good with Will, and he has not touched the block. I guess now this week, the only time he's touched the block was when Lauren's in HOH. That's the only time. So outside of her, he's good with everybody else. No one else is putting him up, I don't think. So as long as Lauren's on HOH, Will should be just fine. But right now, what are your thoughts on the season? This is a terrible cast to me. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I think my issue with Will is I don't think it's active. I think it's more like the grandpa style of gameplay where like you're just nice and you're a good person, so you're in with everyone, which is like, that's easier said than done in that game.
Yeah,
with
but I think
everything around you.
I don't think
I
he's
think he is at a minimal level, but to me, like it's enough with this cast. I just don't think it has win equity. But as far as this season alone, and look, we'll do a dedicated video in the next few weeks, maybe around the finale night, of like ways to fix Big Brother. I'll talk into one in a second. But as far as this cast goes, like I think there is a lack of desire to win Big Brother, which sounds ridiculous because it's the massive prize at the end.
The point is to win the game, right?
It is this long, grueling, grinding experience where, like, if you're in at this point, shouldn't you, like, really be committed to winning? And off the top of my head, it's like, I think Keanu's really committed to winning. I think Vince is committed to winning. I think Morgan's committed to winning. And then outside of that, I get really skeptical. I think Lauren is like half committed to winning, I guess. But I think, again, could she even sell a jury? Would she even be comfortable with selling a jury? I don't know. Will, I think, at this point is happy for the experience. Ashley, I think, is taking her foot really off the gas since the Rachel eviction. And then Ava...
I didn't know if it was on the gas.
Well, yeah, there you go. And then Ava, I think, is doing this for social media followers. And that gets into my point of what I was about to say. And like I said, I want to do eventually the next few weeks, could be before the finale, after whatever. I want to do a longer video. Me and you will go however much time of like ways to fix this franchise as a whole. But I think the easiest way, and this sounds dumb, cast people that know the game. I think this is so ridiculous that, like, not only do they often quote, like, things that happened wrong in the past, they ask questions like, I believe it was Riley, who, like, didn't understand how evictions worked, if it was live. Kelly pretended, I don't know if it was real or fake, pretended or not, to not really grasp how live feeds work, that they were, like, always live.
They're always watching us. Yeah,
which they mentioned 100 times throughout the course of a season.
Apparently, so, Jimmy said it's in a book. Apparently, Jimmy said, who was evicted, I think, third or fourth. He literally said they have a book that they give you. It's a handbook. That it's all the stuff's in there. Just read it while you're in sequester.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just off the top of my head, I think like Jimmy wanted to play Big Brother. Rachel wanted to play Big Brother, along with the people we talked about, the four I mentioned, or 3.5. And then beyond that, it gets really tough. It's like Zach, like, seemed like he was like into it, but like at the same time, like didn't really do enough. And
these
like
are all here
Zay, too small of a sample. Adrian, like, clearly a super fan, but like didn't seem like he really like had the repertoire to go far in this game. And he kind of got screwed. But regardless, so it's like next year should be a priority to get people that actually understand the game and not just watch the season or two in sequester before, like, you even get to sequester, maybe just with your family, like cramming in some last-minute homework. Like, you have to get people that have watched seasons of the show, that understand the intricacies of the show. And again, casting's not that simple. You can't just cast 17 people that have watched Big Brother and they're going to be good TV. I understand that. But they need to at least, like, have conviction in their game and want to win. Like, Lauren seems like a really great person, okay? And she's clearly a fan of the game, but she seems 5 years too early to play this game. She doesn't have that conviction to her whatsoever. And when it's at this point in the game and she's throwing vetoes to do something that she, like, could have just done herself, and it's going to have the exact same blowback, but she just doesn't want to do it, it's like, what are you doing?
What game is that? Like,
what are you doing? That's not Big Brother. And we'll talk about Survivor too. We can do a Survivor one of that as well, like how we would fix Survivor. We'll do a Survivor preview, I'm sure, as well. See how this cast is just from like paper reading bios and whatnot, and see how accurate that is. We can do a little draft of that to mix in our 2 weekly podcasts. But right now, I just wanted to get this out of the way. Like, it's at the point where ratings were really good this year. And I think there was fun parts of this season. And I'm not going to say the writing's on the wall for the end of the show, but, like, man, it's in dire territory.
It doesn't look good. Real quick, because, yes, getting authentic, real people is important. And getting people who know the show is important. I know they need drama, but all the blow-ups this year have been so, like, rehearsed.
Manufactured, man.
Yeah, maybe manufactured. The right word to use it. I mean, it's just like, they're like, okay, let me do this at a veto meeting or like at a nomination ceremony and make it good TV. It doesn't.
It's to go viral on Twitter. That's what it is.
It's to go viral on Twitter. It's not like a legitimate, like, actually going on in the middle of nowhere. It's like these big blowups, which we've seen in the past for sure. This season felt very rehearsed, and maybe Rachel being there has something to do with it because she is kind of the queen of this whole sort of thing. But we are running out of like real authentic people all this season. Like Kelly has no idea what she's doing. Ava's there to get followers. Lauren is a good competitor, but I don't think she's actually has any idea what she's doing as far as playing the game. And she's a super fan, so it's not like I always talk on Vinny, but at least he knows the game, he knows the history of it, and final twos, but whatever it is, he's got him there, and it's going to be a race to the end. I'm still going to watch it because I want to know who's going to win this wacky season, but I'm running out of people that I care about. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I'll never stop watching. I've only done that once, really. So we'll go into more Big Brother depth and isolated stuff throughout. Like I said, we'll do a how can this franchise be saved. Maybe we'll do a postseason recap at the end of this in a few weeks, which might be a tough stomach to get through, but we'll try. And then, of course, all the Survivor stuff, which I'm much more excited about. But again, that cast looks a little shaky too from the outset. But
and I know
regardless.
Whoops.
And Mike allegedly knows who wins, but regardless.
Allegedly.
I'm Xaiver. That's Mike. This was the Gurus. We'll try to do this 2 times a week. We'll try to be on your airwaves very shortly, and we'll do some other stuff mixed in there. But what a fantastic second episode. And make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you again soon.